There are some missions that fail in the sky. And then there are missions that only begin when the aircraft is already falling apart. This was one of those stories. Because the truth is, Captain Adam Keller was supposed to die 3 separate times before he ever touched the ground. The missile should have killed him. The fire should have killed him. And when his parachute refused to open over enemy territory, the fall itself should have finished the job. But somehow, against every law of reason, he survived long enough to discover something worse than death. He was coming down inside Iran, not near a border crossing, not near a friendly safe route, not near a covert extraction zone. He was falling into the kind of land where a stranger did not remain a stranger for long, where news traveled faster than radios, where entire villages could turn into hunting parties before sunrise, and where the wrong uniform could earn a public execution long before any official force ever arrived. And what happened next was not just the story of one pilot trying to stay alive. It became the story of men who crossed into hell to bring him back. While the mountain, the weather, the people, the enemy networks, and even their own failing equipment tried to bury the mission at every single step. Stay with this story until the end, because the rescue itself was even more dangerous than the crash. And the final extraction should never have worked. Adam Keller had been flying combat missions for nearly 11 years. By now he understood the strange psychology of men who lived inside machines traveling faster than fear. Before your first mission, you imagined heroism. After your 10th, you imagined procedure. After enough years in the cockpit, you stopped imagining anything at all. You simply learned how to function while danger became routine. That night had begun like many others, too quiet, too clean, too controlled. At the airbase, the runway lights washed everything in white glare. Fuel trucks moved away. Ground crew spoke in short, efficient bursts. The jet waiting for Keller on the line looked less like a machine and more like a sharpened intention, loaded and ready, nose pointed toward a darkness where governments denied things and pilots disappeared. Inside the briefing room, the mission had been presented with the cold confidence only maps could create. A hidden relay site. Mountain buried. Minimal window. Hit the target, turn out, return before dawn. No prolonged engagement. No second pass. No visible support. A short operation, if everything went right. But the best lies in war are always the shortest ones. As he suited up, Keller had caught his reflection in a locker room mirror and barely recognized it. Calm face. Dry eyes. Controlled breathing. The face of a man who looked ready. That image meant nothing. Fear was never visible in the men who understood it best. Another pilot, Mason, had been tightening his gloves when he looked over and said, "You ever feel it before takeoff? Not panic, not nerves, something else. Like the night already made a decision." Keller gave the half smile of someone who didn't want to encourage superstition but had already lived through enough coincidence to stop mocking it. "Every mission," he said. Mason nodded slowly. "Yeah, but tonight feels different." Maybe it did. Or maybe men only learned later which moments had carried warning signs. When Adam Keller took off, the world narrowed to instrument glow, controlled breathing, radio discipline, and black air. The border disappeared beneath him without ceremony. Hostile airspace rarely looked hostile from altitude. It looked empty, silent, almost innocent. Mountains rose like sleeping giants below, and scattered village lights blinked in the darkness like distant stars fallen to earth. His target lay hidden in stone, a communications relay embedded into a remote ridgeline, protected not by visibility but by secrecy. The kind of place designed to exist only in classified files and whispered conversations. Keller approached low and fast. The attack run lasted seconds. Target lock. Release. 2 precision bombs dropped away into the dark. There is always a strange delay after release. A pocket of silence between action and consequence. Those tiny seconds had always felt unnatural to Keller. The mind knew what was coming, but the eyes could not yet see it. Then the mountain erupted. A blossom of orange fire burst from the ridgeline. Dust and debris punched outward. The hidden site vanished inside its own destruction. Control came over the radio with the clipped satisfaction of success. Direct hit. Break east. Keller began the turn. And then the cockpit exploded with alarms. Missile warning. The sound hit his nervous system before the thought did. He moved instantly. Flares punched out in bright streaks behind him. He rolled, cut, dropped altitude, and pulled hard enough to feel the aircraft strain beneath him. The first missile passed. The second found him. The impact tore into the rear fuselage with a blast so violent it felt as though the entire sky had hit back. Warning lights flooded the cockpit. Fire. Hydraulic failure. Engine failure. Control degradation. The aircraft shuddered, rolled, then dipped into a spin that Keller fought and instantly knew he could not win. He had seconds. Maybe less. The jet was no longer flying. It was falling with structure. He reached down and pulled the ejection handle. Nothing happened. The world narrowed. He pulled again, harder, rage and panic and survival collapsing into one desperate act. This time the canopy blew apart. The ejection seat punched him upward into black air so violently it felt like being torn out of existence. One instant he was inside flame and metal. The next he was tumbling alone through freezing wind while the aircraft that had carried him spun away below like a burning animal heading for the mountains. Training took over. Find orientation. Breathe. Release from seat. Deploy chute. He reached for the parachute. Pulled. Nothing. For a second he thought he had missed the handle. He pulled again. Still nothing. The parachute was jammed. It is impossible to explain what happens inside a human mind when it discovers that the final layer of survival has failed. Up to that point, fear still has structure. It belongs to a sequence. Missile. Fire. Ejection. Chute. But when the chute doesn't open, time loses shape. Thought becomes impact-aware. The body stops imagining. Later, beneath him, the terrain rushed upward. And then he saw the lights. Not empty rock. Not open desert. A village. He was falling toward a village on the outer slopes of the mountains, and even from that height he could make out movement below. The burning wreckage had already been seen. Doors were opening. Men were running out into roads and courtyards, pointing upward. Some were drawn by shock. Some by curiosity. Some by anger. But if he landed among them, their motives would not matter. Their numbers would. He pulled again. Nothing. He kicked, twisted, slammed his fist into the release housing, tried the emergency override, then pulled again while the altimeter crashed lower and lower. 5,000 feet. 3,000. 2,000. The ground had become real now. He could see rooftops, dirt pathways, stone walls, human figures gathering, some already running toward the likely impact area. In the distance, dogs barking, voices rising. He was not going to land hidden. He was going to land hunted. At what felt like the last possible moment before the earth would have broken him, he smashed his fist into the emergency housing again with all the force panic could lend. And the parachute exploded open. The opening shock snapped through him like a collision. Pain detonated in his shoulder and spine. His neck whipped back. For a second, he thought the sudden violence had broken something else inside him. But he was alive, and now he was swinging, not down into the center of the village, but toward the outer ridge above it. The difference between instant death and delayed death was now a matter of drift. He hit the slope badly. Not a landing. A crash. His body tore through thorn brush, clipped a dead tree, and slammed into rock hard enough to drive the air from his lungs. His left leg folded underneath him. His shoulder hit first, then his temple. White pain flashed through everything. He slid, bounced once more, and stopped against a jagged outcrop with half the chute collapsing over him. For several seconds he could not breathe. Then he heard the shouting below. Human voices. Many of them. Find him. Up there. Don't let him get away. And then a voice, sharp and full of hate, carrying just enough for him to understand the meaning even through distance and adrenaline. If he's alive, hang him before sunrise. Whatever strength remained in Adam Keller came from that sentence. He tore at the chute harness, freeing himself with shaking hands while trying not to cry out from the leg. He rolled behind a boulder just as beams of light began sweeping the slope below. Flashlights. Searchers already climbing. Faster than he had expected. The crash had turned the hillside into a beacon. He checked his injuries in fragments. Head bleeding. Shoulder damaged. Leg badly hurt, maybe fractured, maybe torn, impossible to know. Breathing sharp on one side, possibly cracked ribs. He fumbled for the survival radio and got only static. Tried the emergency beacon. Dead. Either damaged in the ejection or broken on impact. Below him, the searchers were spreading out. He could hear them more clearly now. Boots on stone. Men calling to one another. The chaotic organization of civilians becoming a mob. Somewhere lower down, more dogs. A flashlight beam passed so near his position that he flattened himself into the dirt and stopped breathing. The rock beside his face glowed white for a second, then went dark again. Then came the first small miracle of the night. A child or teenager, he could not tell which, spotted a strip of parachute cloth snagged on a rock face to Keller's right and shouted. The searchers immediately began angling toward it. Keller turned his head and saw the problem at once. If they reached that cloth, they would continue upward, and then they would find him. He took out the small survival knife from his vest, crawled 3 agonizing feet across stone, reached the fabric, and cut it loose. Wind caught the white material and dragged it downslope in the opposite direction, bouncing it between rocks like a moving signal. The villagers rushed after it. That bought him minutes. Only minutes. But sometimes survival was built from smaller things than courage. A strip of cloth. A shadow at the right angle. One wrong turn by the men hunting you. He used those minutes to crawl uphill. The word crawl is too gentle for what he did. He dragged himself with his arms while the damaged leg scraped uselessly behind him. Every pull sent pain ripping through his ribs. His hands became wet with his own blood where the rocks opened the skin. Twice he nearly blacked out. Once he stopped moving because he thought he heard voices directly above him, only to realize the sound was in his head, blood and wind and fear combining into false certainty. Then he found a narrow fissure in the rock face. He almost missed it. In darkness it looked like nothing more than shadow between stones, but when he pressed against it, the space opened. Tight. Jagged. Barely enough for a man to enter sideways. Keller forced himself into it, gritting his teeth as the rock scraped his injured shoulder and hip. The crevice widened slightly inside, opening into a cramped pocket of darkness invisible from below. It was not shelter. It was concealment. And for that moment, concealment was better. Inside the crack, he finally allowed himself to assess the damage properly. His shoulder felt partly displaced. He braced himself against the wall, bit down on his sleeve, and drove the joint back into place with a savage movement that nearly made him vomit. Then he tore strips from his undershirt and wrapped the leg as tightly as he could in the dark, feeling wet warmth beneath the cloth but unable to tell whether the worst injury was a fracture, deep laceration, or both. Outside, footsteps passed close. So close he could hear individual stones shift under boots. Then the dogs came. One stopped outside the crevice. Sniffed. Keller held perfectly still. No breath. No movement. Finger curled around the grip of the sidearm he had no illusion of surviving with. The dog whined once. Then somebody below shouted that they had found something near the wreckage, and the handler pulled it away. Keller stayed frozen long after the sounds were gone. By the time the eastern sky began to pale, his body was shaking uncontrollably, from shock, blood loss, cold, and the nervous system's delayed revolt. Somewhere beyond the mountains, other people were studying radar, returns and thermal signatures, calculating probabilities, debating jurisdiction and risk. On screens and maps, Adam Keller was already becoming an incident. For a while, nobody knew if he had survived. Then someone noticed what wasn't there. No body near the crash site. No remains clearly visible in the wreckage. Seat debris displaced from the main impact zone. A possibility. Weak, uncertain, expensive, but real. At command, the mood changed instantly. A dead pilot was a tragedy. A living pilot inside hostile territory was a crisis. Major Elijah Cross was brought in before full daylight. He studied the terrain with the expression of a man reading a list of problems, not a plan. Mountain choke points. Villages embedded along likely descent lines. Poor signal continuity. Civilian search activity already increasing. Local militant and paramilitary response probable if word spread. Border distance unfavorable. Air extraction risky. ground extraction slower than the pilot likely had blood to spare. He listened to the analysts, the signal experts, the weather officer, the political liaison who spoke in sanitized phrases about consequences. Then he asked the only question that mattered. Do we have proof he's dead? No one answered immediately. That was enough. If he's alive, Cross said, every hour makes this worse. Build the package. The rescue operation assembled with the speed reserved for missions that nobody wanted recorded in ordinary language. Ground teams, signals specialists, drones, a relay platform, 2 extraction helicopters, 1 reserve bird, a deception asset, medical support, secure channels, border staging. If written on paper, it sounded substantial. Cross knew paper did not climb mountains. By then Keller had left the crevice, because staying there in daylight was impossible. If villagers returned with more men or if the sun shifted the shadow, he would be trapped. Moving was agony, but remaining static meant discovery. He crawled deeper across the ridge line, following instinct more than logic, searching for any depression, overhang, or fold of terrain that might hide him through the day. He found it by accident. A collapsed shepherd shelter, half swallowed into the mountain, stone walls broken low, a roofline mostly gone, interior black with dust and the smell of animals long absent. From even a short distance, it looked like rock. Inside, there was just enough space for a man to lie flat and disappear. And there, in one cracked basin near the back wall, rainwater had collected. Warm, dirty, stale. To Keller it tasted like permission to continue living. He drank slowly at first, then greedily, then forced himself to stop before he emptied it. The body always wanted more than survival could afford. The day passed in fragments. Heat, pain, sleep that wasn't really sleep. Distant voices occasionally moving across the slopes. Once, laughter nearby that froze him more effectively than gunfire. Once, the sound of a vehicle engine far below, meaning the search was now becoming organized. At some point fever crept in quietly, the kind that announced itself not through heat but through a strange softness at the edges of thought. By late afternoon, he tried the radio again. Static. Then nothing. He adjusted position, raised it higher, waited, tried once more. A voice cracked through. Weak. Broken. Distant. He almost thought he had imagined it. This is Reaper. Say again. Keller's entire body seemed to wake at once. This is Raven 1. Adam Keller. I'm alive. His voice came out hoarse and far less steady than he wanted. The reply dissolved into static, then returned. Authenticate. He did. A pause. Then, with a clarity that cut through pain and exhaustion like light through cloud, Raven 1, hold position. We are coming. And just like that, the signal died. No precise coordinates sent. No exact terrain lock. No proper beacon. Nothing clean. Just proof. He was alive. On the rescue side, that broken transmission hit like electricity. A wounded pilot. Still conscious. At least one surviving radio. Somewhere in a broad mountain sector where signal bounce and interference made triangulation unreliable. Enough to justify everything. Not enough to simplify anything. Cross did not celebrate. He immediately understood the complication. A dead man required confirmation. A living man required extraction. And the second problem was always harder. Search efforts intensified in the region, almost as if the land itself had heard the radio burst. Rumors spread across nearby villages. Foreign pilot alive. Wounded. Hiding in the mountains. Men who might have stayed home now picked up rifles or radios. Checkpoints appeared on dirt roads. Informal patrols formed. Engines moved through valleys where there had been silence before. And because no information stayed local for long, every hour increased the chance that more organized hostile elements would join the hunt. The first rescue push came under darkness. Cross sent a 6-man element on foot through a narrow approach corridor, while one helicopter held far back for a rapid extraction if a signal lock became possible. The idea was brutal but simple. Reach the mountain, establish closer contact, and snatch the pilot before the search web fully tightened. It might have worked. Then the weather turned. A sand-laden storm rolled across the valley faster than forecast, visibility collapsing into a wall of moving dust. Drone feeds degraded. Navigation became uncertain. Laser marking became unreliable. Still the team pushed on, because turning back without trying felt like abandonment. Halfway through the approach, one operator triggered a concealed trip flare near an old smuggling trail. The night detonated into sudden white fire. Gunshots followed almost instantly from above and to the left. The team went to ground, returned fire, tried to break contact. The helicopter pilot, listening to the chaos and watching instruments degrade in the dust, made the call no pilot wants to make in a rescue window: abort approach or crash blind into the canyon wall. He pulled away. The ground team fought to exfiltrate through zero visibility while hostile fire tracked movement more by sound than sight. Nobody died in that first attempt, but the mission did. By dawn, Cross had lost the window, exposed local interest, and gained nothing except confirmation that the mountains were now awake. Keller heard some of that gunfire from his shelter and could not know what it meant. Were they close? Had they tried and failed? Were those friendly shots or just local fighters clashing with something else? The not knowing was its own kind of torture. Hope had entered his situation, and with hope came a new cruelty. Before the radio, survival meant only the next minute. After the radio, it meant waiting for people who might die trying to reach him. The second day punished him more openly. The leg had swollen badly. His head throbbed. Fever deepened. Twice he drifted into half-dreams and woke convinced he had already been found. At one point, he heard men just outside the ruined shelter arguing about whether a foreigner could survive the first night on the mountain. One insisted no. Another said wounded men hid like foxes. Keller held the pistol in both shaking hands and waited for footsteps to enter. They never did. Sometime after midday, Cross's analysts caught the first useful clue. A drone reviewing thermal fragments from the night before had recorded a fleeting heat signature near a broken cliff line above an abandoned grazing route. Human-sized, stationary, then gone. Not proof. But not nothing. Cross moved immediately. He established a more aggressive relay posture on a ridge that offered better chance of catching another burst from Keller's damaged radio. It exposed his own people to more risk, but he had reached the point every rescue commander knows well. If you keep waiting for ideal conditions, the casualty dies while the plan improves. Near sunset, the radio returned. This time Cross spoke to him directly. The rescue commander's voice was calm in a way that bordered on unreal. No urgency in tone, though everything underneath it was urgent. No pity. No dramatics. That was by design. Wounded men hanging at the edge of their own endurance did not need somebody else's anxiety poured into them. Cross asked for the sky at dawn. Wind direction. Any visible man-made landmarks. Shape of nearby ridgelines. Keller answered in fragments. A broken minaret seen through a rock gap. A ridge like the jaw of an animal. A dry wash below. Goats once, long ago. A slope facing first light. It was enough. Barely. Cross built the probable area and committed to a second rescue push. But the mountain still had one more insult ready. The helicopter sent to test a narrow extraction route hit violent turbulence inside the canyon line and nearly slammed into the rock wall. The pilot fought it out, but not before the aircraft took stress damage serious enough to remove it temporarily from primary use. One bird compromised. One reserve still available. A worsening ground picture. A dying pilot. No clean options left. That was when Cross stopped trying to run a rescue and started orchestrating chaos. He split the next effort into layers. One team would stage a loud diversion against a southern checkpoint to draw local armed response away from the pilot sector. Another team would infiltrate toward Keller on foot under that cover. Signals would maintain burst contact if possible. The helicopter would only come in at the final stage, late enough to preserve surprise, early enough that Keller did not die in their arms on the mountain. When the diversion hit, it struck hard and sharp. Not a battle. A disruption. Enough noise, enough confusion, enough fear of something larger occurring that armed responders surged in the wrong direction. Vehicles moved south. Radio chatter spiked. Checkpoints tightened elsewhere. And for the first time since the crash, the upper ridge above Keller thinned. Cross's retrieval team moved immediately. They climbed through darkness over terrain that looked less like land and more like the remains of something broken. Loose stone slid under every step. Narrow ledges dropped into black nothing. Once, an operator slipped, and only the grip of the man behind him kept him from vanishing into the ravine. Later they had to belly across a ridge line while lights moved below, too close for comfort and too far to engage. The mountain punished speed and delay equally. They found Keller just before dawn. At first the man inside the ruined shelter barely looked alive. Fever had hollowed him. Blood had dried black on his flight suit. His lips were cracked. His eyes opened slowly, not with relief but with the exhausted uncertainty of someone who had already imagined rescue so many times he no longer trusted it. Then one of the medics touched his shoulder and said quietly, "We've got you." Only then did Keller let go of whatever thin inner wire had been holding him upright. The medic worked fast. Antibiotics, fluids, pain control. A rapid assessment of the leg that confirmed what they already feared: severe trauma, major blood loss, and no chance he was walking out. They loaded him onto a collapsible litter and began withdrawal. That should have been the hardest part. It was not. The hardest part began when a local patrol, moving without any knowledge of the diversion farther south, doubled back across a ridge and spotted movement below the shelter. The first burst of gunfire shattered rock inches from the team before anyone had even fully identified direction. The mountain erupted. Cross's men returned fire in disciplined bursts and started dragging Keller downhill across terrain that had been difficult on approach and now became monstrous in retreat. A man on a litter turned every slope into mathematics. Every stumble mattered. Every second spent stabilizing him invited more fire. At one narrow drop, they had no choice but to rig a fast rope descent with Keller strapped in. While bullets snapped into rock above them, two operators lowered the litter by hand, gloves cutting, boots slipping, the entire system one mistake away from dumping a dying pilot into the ravine below. They made it. Barely. Then came the next problem. The designated landing zone was compromised. What had looked viable on aerial imagery was now a bowl of dust, rock, and crosswind, tighter than predicted and already half exposed by the firefight. Cross had seconds to decide whether to divert to a farther site, risking loss of Keller on the move, or force the helicopter into a bad approach and pray. He chose the bad approach. The extraction helicopter came in low through the canyon like something trying not to exist. Rotor wash tore dust into a violent cloud the moment it flared for landing. Visibility vanished. Engine strain warnings hit almost immediately from ingestion. The aircraft touched down hard, skidding slightly, still not stable. Load now or lose the bird. They rammed Keller aboard. 3 operators climbed in with him. Cross stayed out with the remainder to hold security and prepare for the reserve extraction. The helicopter lifted under fire, wobbling as it clawed for air. For a moment it seemed to work. Then, halfway through the canyon exit, warning alarms screamed in the cockpit. The aircraft had taken additional damage, whether from debris, ground fire, or both. No one could tell in that second. The pilot wrestled the machine level while the medic threw himself over Keller to keep equipment from flying loose. Back on the mountain, Cross and the remaining team were now pinned with one wounded operator, dwindling ammunition, and the knowledge that if the reserve bird failed to reach them, they would have to disappear into hostile terrain carrying a casualty and no good route out. This is the point where most stories say the rescuers dug deep. The truth is harsher. Men do not suddenly discover courage in moments like that. They discover obligation. They continue because stopping would condemn everyone depending on them. Heroism is usually just duty with no pleasant alternative. Cross called for the reserve bird. The pilot answered immediately. He knew the risks, knew the air picture, knew one aircraft had already been damaged on the same line. He came anyway. By the time the second helicopter reached the landing zone, Cross's team was nearly dry on ammunition. They had used smoke not just for concealment, but to create the illusion of a larger force. One man had been hit. Another had been firing single-controlled shots because wasted rounds now equaled death later. The reserve bird came down into active fire. Not near it. Into it. Rotor wash blasted smoke sideways. Dust exploded upward. The helicopter barely settled before the team began throwing the wounded aboard. One operator kept firing until the very last second, then jumped in as the aircraft lifted. The skids cleared the rock by what looked like inches. Below them, muzzle flashes kept stabbing through the smoke. Above them, dawn began to stain the horizon. Neither helicopter was in good shape on the way out. The first limped with damage and unstable systems. The second carried its own scars from the hot extraction. But both kept moving, and in rescue operations, movement away from the objective is often the first true sign that survival has a chance. Keller drifted in and out of consciousness during the flight. Sometimes the medic's face hovered above him. Sometimes only rotor noise. Once he opened his eyes and saw Cross sitting opposite him in the aircraft, expression unreadable beneath dust and exhaustion. "You came back," Keller murmured, not even sure whether he had spoken aloud. Cross looked at him for a long second. "You were still there." It was not a dramatic answer. That was why it mattered. Later, long after surgeries and debriefings and classified summaries had turned the violence of those 47 hours into clean language for people who had never heard a jammed parachute refuse to open over enemy land, the story remained the same in all the ways that counted. A pilot was hit over hostile territory. He ejected. His chute failed until the last possible heartbeat. He fell toward a village where men were already gathering to capture him. He landed broken. He hid while wounded, alone, and hunted. He survived the night. Then the day. Then another night. And when rescue finally came, it did not come like a miracle descending from the sky. It came late, damaged, exhausted, improvised, and one mistake from collapse. It came through broken radio bursts, failed approaches, storms, false leads, fever, gunfire, cliffs, dust, and men who accepted the possibility that they might never leave the mountain if they chose to go in. That is what makes a story like this unforgettable. Not just that one man survived impossible odds, but that others refused to treat him as already dead. The world often remembers missions by the targets destroyed, the maps redrawn, the speeches made afterward. But some of the greatest acts in war are far smaller and far more human than that. Sometimes the most meaningful victory is not winning territory or proving strength. Sometimes it is this. A wounded man falls out of the sky into a place built to erase him. And somebody still goes back. Somebody still says no. Not him. Not tonight. Not if we can still reach him. And maybe that is why stories like this last longer than battles do. Because buried inside all the machinery, all the tactics, all the geopolitics, there remains one ancient human promise stronger than fear. If you are still breathing, we will try. And if we have to walk through fire, through mountains, through darkness, through every failure the night can throw at us, we will bring you home. If you enjoyed this kind of intense cinematic war story, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for more impossible rescues, survival legends, and high-stakes military stories. And tell me in the comments, what would you call the men who were willing to die just to bring one pilot back alive?